Okay, good afternoon and welcome to a special Chol HaMoed edition of Just Daf It, Daf Yomi Shir. We're learning Kesubos Daf Sadi Zayin, which I believe is today's Daf, number 97. We're going to start on the top, the last word of the first line. Kesad Mocheres. Talked about in Daf Sadi Vav that she's allowed to sell her husband's property after he dies to collect her mazonos, collect sustenance, which his Yorshim, his heirs, owe her. Or she can sell for a ksuba. So how does she sell? Amar Rav Daniel bar Rav Katina Amar Rav Huna Mocheres Achas Shnei Masar Chodesh. She can sell. Really, she's only supposed to be selling his real estate. She sells once a year. Lokeach Mofares Achas Soshim Yom. Right? It's paid up in installments. Paid up. Technically, you're not supposed to get all the money right away. If you get all the money right away, you might spend it very quickly. Go out to fancy restaurants. So you get an incrementally paid once every 30 days for 12 months. Rav Yehuda Amar Mocheres Shisha Chadashim. Every 6 months, she sells the amount that she needs for, let's say, mazonos. Lokeach Mefarnes Achas Soshim Yom is talking mazonos, right? Her sustenance. So, and she gets every 30 days, she gets an installment. She gets paid by the purchaser of the property. Tanya goes to Rav Huna. A brisa, according to the opinion of Rav Huna, Mocheres Shnei Masar Chodesh Lokeach Mefarnes Achas Soshim Yom. Exactly, Rav Huna says. Tanya Gavasi to Rav Yehuda. There's also a brisa which accords to Rav Yehuda. Mocheres L'Shisha Chadasha. She sells once every 6 months property, right? That she can need for whatever her sustenance is, right? The property will be worth the value that she needs for 6 months. Lokeach Mefarnes Achas Soshim Yom. She gets paid in 6 installments. Amar Abai Amemar. Hilchasa, the halacha follows Mocheres L'Shisha Chadasha Lokeach Mefarnes Achas Soshim Yom. She only sells 6 months at a time and gets paid incrementally 6 times. Amar Le Rav Ashi La Memar the Rav Huna. What do you do? Arash Dal Memar, you're paskening like Rav Yehuda. What about Rav Huna? Rav Huna was a valid opinion. He's an Amora. Amar Le Lo Shmieli. I never hear about him. Kolomar, when he said they didn't hear about it, was a nice way of saying Kolomar Lo Svirli. I don't agree with Rav Huna. I agree with the opinion of Rav Huna. Bo Minem Rav Sheshas. They asked from Rav Sheshas. Mocheres Mazonos. Mao Shetachzar V'Titra Flexuva. Right? She's entitled to 2 things. She's entitled to getting fed, and she's also entitled to her ksuva, which is a manam, asayim. It could be a tosefes ksuva, it could be nechsim belug, it could be a dowries included. So it could be worth a lot of money. So as long as she's getting mazonos, she doesn't collect the ksuva. Once she collects the ksuva, she forfeits her mazonos and she's kicked out of her husband's house. So let's say she sold the properties from mazonos, right? And there's nothing left. He has no more real estate, right? So how should she collect her ksuva? So she sold the property. Now she has a shibud on the property, so she'll sell the property for $100,000. It's worth, and then her ksuva, right, is also worth $100,000. A big ksuva. So she gets 6 months. She sold it for 6 months. She needed $100,000. She's a very rich lady, and 6 months it was paid off. Now the person who bought the house owns the house. Then, oh no, I'll take the house because, right, it's one of the properties. There's a lien. One of the properties that my husband owed me a ksuva. The property has a lien on it. I'll take it. I'll collect it for the ksuva. Could she do that? So the Gemara says, basically this question is the question that Rav Yosef formulated. The Amar Rav Yosef, Armalas the Zavna Achrayas Diyasme. Rav Yosef says that Armalas, a widow, that she sells property of her husband, Achrayas Diyasme, meaning the guarantee, right, to pay back if she collects it. If someone were to collect the property, right, that they sold, not necessarily the woman herself, she sells his estate, his real estate, and then her husband owed someone else money. He can collect that property. So who has to pay when the person collects from this moch, from the lokeach, right? The balcho collects from the lokeach. Who has to pay back, the almana or the yorshim? So the Gemara, so Rav Yosef says, right? The person who has to repay this buyer who now lost his property. And similarly, if a court sold, sometimes we'll learn a court sells because the widow's not around, she's not capable of making a sale. So then also the responsibility to reimburse the lokeach, the buyer of the house or the real estate, is on the asomim. What do we say? Since the achrayas is not on the woman, it's on the Yisomim, she can collect it. Oh, Dilma Matzi Amarla, maybe the purchaser can say to her, Nida achrayas the Amalo kabilt alevech, achrayas the nafshech, milo kabule kabilt. Right? You didn't take responsibility to pay back other people, but who said, right? Yourself, right? You took the responsibility not to pay back yourself, right? You have to repay me. Maybe you took it from me. You have to repay me for the house. You can't just take it. Amalei Tani Suah. So he said back then, we learned we have an explicit mission like this, Brisa like this. She could sell her husband's property until the amount of Kesubos. She'd sell until there's a little bit left, up until close to it. She shouldn't sell her husband's entire real estate portfolio in order for her mizona. She should leave a little bit to collect the ksuba. Shmamina shire and lo shire lo. You can only get the ksuba if she left property to sell for the ksuba. She can't sell property from mizonos and then go back and collect that property in lieu of her ksuba. So the Gemara says, maybe the Bryce is not telling you halacha, it's telling you a good advice. Should leave a new property, right? An Indian giver, they call it an Indian giver. You gave her property, you sold this property, you're taking it back, so maybe it's good advice. Technically, she could do it. So the Gemara says, that's true, you can't listen, go back to Vasim Ashar. She can collect her square from the rest. My semach, the word, you should leave over something. Shmamina shari and lo shira lo. Only if she leaves it, then she can collect. If not, not. Ibalu zavin velo isrichule zuzi. This is a general question. This is a very perplexing sugya over here. I'm not going to go into this in Iyot Ben Sion, but it really requires an Iyot Ben Sion try to figure out why this halacha, what the psak halacha at the end really makes sense, why it should make sense. You sold the property. Zavin v'lo itzrichle zuze. You sold the property, you sold your real estate because you thought you needed money, you need cash right now. You want to invest in the stock market. You want to buy something. I don't know. And then you realize that you don't need the money. You don't need the money. You had another bank account, or we'll see, the prices went down, inflation went down. You don't need the money anymore. You sold your real estate. You want to go renege on the sale. You want to get your real estate back. What's the halacha? Hadri zvini or lo hadri zvini? Can you forfeit? Can you cancel, avoid the sale or not? Tashma nu gaver the zavan ara Rav Papa. He sold land to Rav Papa. The shlichle zuze. The mizben turi. He needed money to buy oxen to plow his field. It's after Shemitah. He wants to plow his field. L'sav lo shlichle. At the end, he didn't need the adri nahale. And Rav Papa returned the land to him. Rav Papa la'ara adri nahale. Rav Papa la'are. Rav Papa returned the land to him. The Gemara answers, "He's Rav Papa. How you can give it? The deal is null and void." The Gemara says, "Rav Papa, listen to me, sure as I didn't David, who was a big rabbi, the Chashav rabbi. He wanted to have a good name, so maybe he didn't keep the letter of the law. He did liftim mishur is above the law. Technically, what's really halacha? Tashman hu b'tzuras dav b'naharda. There was a famine in Naharda. There was a lot of food. Zavninu kuli amal lapatnayu. They sold their mansions because they wanted to purchase the expensive wheat. L'sov asuchiti. At the end, a lot of wheat came from Ukraine. I don't know. Ukraine were able to export it. And they had a lot of wheat, and the wheat wasn't costing so much. They didn't need the money. Amalur of Nachman, Dinahu, the Hadri Apadi Marayu. Nachman says the halacha is they didn't end up needing the money, that the sale reverts. It goes back, the mansions go back to their original owners. So the Gemara answers, no, that's not a proof. There already, when they sold their mansions, the wheat was already there at a cheaper price. Because what happened? It was a mekach toast at that time. The Igloi Milsadar, but Ikuli Havakaimi, that the boats with the shipments of wheat were just caught up in customs. So they were caught up in customs, so it was already there. They just didn't know about it. That's a mekach toast. But what about, we're talking about where at the time you sold it, you needed the money, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, you realize you didn't need the money. Can you avoid the sale? One rabbi told Rav Nachman that if you can void the sale, so then people are not going to they were not going to sell their properties, right? Because no one's gonna buy property because you can void the sale. So it must be that you can't void the sale. It doesn't happen that often, right? A family doesn't happen that often. It does happen in the heart. It is fairly common in the heart. So right, you can't just void the sale. Nonetheless, the Gemara Paskins, if you sold a real estate property and you realized you thought you needed the money, and then you realized you didn't need the money, you got extra money, the prices went down for whatever you were trying to buy, the mekach is bata. You can void the sale afterwards. It's hard to understand this halacha. It's not a mekach tos. The time you knew that you needed the money, just later on you didn't need the money. How could you void the sale? Hard to understand. This is not the Ben Sion, but my first thought is just to say what I've been saying until now, that transaction by real estate doesn't really move from one hand to another. It's just the person who has the deed on the land is considered to be the owner of the land. So here we're talking about where apparently the deed was not transferred over to somebody else. Technically, the deed wasn't transferred over to somebody else, so maybe the kinyan didn't happen. Just a matter of going back on your words, right? The Gemara Matzia says, if you agree to the terms of an agreement, you should follow through with it. Over here, they didn't need that because we're talking about expensive real estate, so maybe they said, we're not worried about that over here. Maybe it was a asmachta. Technically, they didn't go over the deed yet, so that person doesn't own the land. We're not giving back the deed. The deed was given already. Maybe the Gemara would paskin that you can't go back on it. Even though the Gemara says Hadri Zvini, maybe Hadri Zvini just in the terms it could be canceled, but not actually the deed could be returned. That's a starting thought about it. That's how you develop Iyun Ben Sion. Yeah, starting thoughts. I could have used that as Iyun Ben Sion and developed a little more, but I have something even better. Let's go on to the next Mishnah. Almana bein eirisin bein nesuah mocheres shelo bebeistin. An almana, a widow, right? It's just two things a woman can collect: she can collect mazonos and ksuva. Now, an almana is not entitled to mazonos. The minhag is to give her mazonos, but she's not entitled to mazonos. So if she's going to sell mina erisin, and her husband died mina erisin, she's going to elect her ksuba. She's telling for the ksuba. And if she's mina suah, she can sue if she already married the guy and the husband died. So then she's entitled to both mazonos and to ksuba. So she can sell shaloba based in. For both of these things, for ksuba, mazonos, she can sell without consulting based in. She can sell on her own. Reb Shimon Omer mina nesuah mocheres shaloba based in. If she's married, she's entitled to mazonos. So then she can sell out of based in, because mazonos is an immediate need. You need the money to feed yourself. Mina erisin lo timkor el based in. Mazonos. However, if the husband dies before the nisuin, only out of erisin, so she has to consult the based in, because all she's collecting a ksuba, which is not an immediate need, she's not collecting mazonos. Because she'en la mazonos, so timkor el based in. When she's not collecting mazonos, you have to consult based in before you make a sale, because based in is going to get you a fair price. They're going to make sure that the real estate is sold for a better price. Women maybe aren't the best at getting a good deal in negotiating real estate. Some women are. I think men are better at negotiating than women, but not to say there aren't great women negotiators out there, but most men are probably better negotiators than women. Whereas I don't have the statistics to back that up. It's just a thought that I think. I don't know. I'm against feminism. I don't want to say that. All right. Gemara says, "Bishlam in Nesuin mishum zoni." The Gemara says it makes sense in Nesuin he's selling without the authority of based in because of mazonos. So yeah, she has to collect mazonos, which is an immediate need. Ella mina eris in my time, right? Why, according to the Rabbanan, Rosh Shimon says doesn't allow her to sell without based in. Erisin, she's only collecting a ksuba. Why is she allowed to sell without consulting based in? She's not going to get a fair price. Amar Ula mishum china. Let's just read how Art Scroll translates this. Because of favor. Now, footnote number 2 says on 97b1, women will view men favorably when they observe the ksubas easy to collect it, without their having to trouble themselves to appear before a court. Consequently, they'll be more inclined to marry. This sounds like women don't want to get married to men. Now, okay, so the Art Scroll already realizes this, and in bracket says, although elsewhere above 86, the Gemara says, Yoser, a woman wants to get married more than a man. here we are more concerned about making a marriage appealing to women than making it appealing to men. For since women tend to be more sensitive to humiliation than men, they are more likely to refrain from marrying if collecting their ksuba involves the degradation of having to appear before a court. In deference to the sensitivity, the rabbis exempted a widow from appearing before a court. Tosfos in 84 explained Mishum Chena differently. Since widowed women will have an easy time collecting their ksubas, they are likely to become wealthy and find favor in the eyes of men, thereby facilitating their remarriage. According to Tosfos, then our concern is enhancing the attractiveness of a woman. Those are two explanations to answer the question that really the art scroll brings up, which is really the question that Tosfos brings up. If you want a third answer, and I believe the correct answer, the explanation of what china really means comes from the word chen, grace. These explanations don't do justice to the word chena. I will give you that. Aniyah ben Sion. That's the opinion of Ula. That's the reason she's able to collect. She sell even outside of basin. Yochanan Amar, the reason she can sell even in Eretz, person when he dies, he doesn't want his wife, even in Eretz, and he cares about her. He got engaged to her. He doesn't want her to have to go through embarrassment to go to court. It's not a fun thing. Even to go to a basin of the Rabbanim, of rabbis, it's embarrassing. It's degrading, especially for a woman to go in front of a basin. Maybe not. What's the practical difference between these two reasons? Ikabenayu grusha, if a woman was divorced. If it's because of china, grace, I'm going to translate it the way I want to say. Grace, that a woman should have grace. Grusha nami ba'yachina, right? We're talking about a woman who's potentially getting remarried, so, right? She's losing some sort of grace by going into Beis Din, so she also needs chen, therefore we don't force her to consult Beis Din. According to the opinion, you don't want your wife to be degraded in Beis Din. Grusha lo ichpaslei. What do you care? You got divorced. You probably hate the woman. So therefore you want her to go into Beis Din. So therefore she has to consult Beis Din. It's not. It says in the Mishnah, Grusha lo simkor ele Beis Din. This is a quote from the next Mishnah, later on in this daf. A grusha, she should only sell in Beis Din. According to Rabbi Yochanan, who says the person doesn't want to degrade his wife, grusha li'ifpaslei. That's why the Mishnah says a grusha, even an Eriston, right? He doesn't care. She also needs chen. How do you explain our Mishnah? Hamani Reb Shimoni. So my answer, our later Mishnah on this daf is Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, right, that you always have to go into Beis Din, right, when you're collecting your ksuba. Reb Shimon, Hatanale Reisha. So if really this latter Mishnah reflects the opinion of Reb Shimon already said it on the previous Amud, on Sadi Zayim and Aleph. Mina Erisin lo timkor. He says, from the Erisin shouldn't sell, right? And then it continues, and anyone who's collecting not mazonos, they're just collecting the ksuba. Mina Erisin, she has to consult Beis Din. So that's probably coming to the grusha. Whereas Ma'ad the same almana mina Erisin lo nafesh chen di da. Aval grusha, right? The first Mishnah from our Mishnah on Sadi Zayim and Aleph, I would have said, in almana mina Erisin, where the husband dies from the Erisin, right? The nafesh chen di da, her grace is not ruined so much by coming to Beis Din. Aval grusha, the nafesh chen di da, if she's divorced, presumably from a marriage, right? She's already married to the guy and she's divorced, where her grace is much more adversely affected. She might need chen. We should be worried about her. So therefore, that's the chiddush of Shimon, that grusha, even after marriage, right? She can't. She has to consult Beis Din. We learn that elsewhere. Kol she'ein la mazonos. The end of the first Mishnah, what is that coming to include? Lav lasui grusha, right? Isn't it basically repetitious of what we're going to say on Sadi Zayim and Beis? The next coming up Mishnah. Gemara says, "Lo lasui migureshes and migureshes." No, on Sadi Zayim and Aleph, the extra lashon of Rav Shimon is coming to talk about a woman who was a safek migureshes. She was married, and then we're not sure. He threw her a gerushin that was safek was karav la. Kedor b'zeir, the Amar b'zeir, kol makom shamar migureshes and migureshes. Safek whether she's a migureshes or not. Baal chayim mazonos. The husband is obligated to feed her mazonos. Now, the husband, he divorces her and then he dies, right? So she's megoreshes and he dies. Now the Yarshim have to continue feeding her. Can she sell his property to collect mazonos? That was Rabbi Shimon's adding on Tadi Zayim and Aleph, the extra lashon in the Mishnah, extra language in the Mishnah, to tell me that she has to do it in Beis Din. And then on Zayin Beis, he talks about a grusha, a full grusha. Tashma. Kshem shemocheres shelo bebeis din, kach yorsha yorsha ksuvasa mochrim shelo bebeis din. The Brisa says, just like she can sell out of Beis Din, so too the people who inherit her ksuva, right? If she were to die, right, and they're collecting the ksuva, they could sell out of Beis Din. Mishal lamandamar f'shen adam rostish bazi shelo bebeis din kechid ilo nichale tizbazi yorsha namilo nichale. He's concerned about his wife. He's probably also concerned about his wife's, heirs, his wife's people that collect his wife's ksuva after she dies, right? He cares about her. He cares about her children also. Usually Yorshim are men, right? Yorshim are men. So what chen, what grace they lose? No, the Bryce is talking about where she had no male heirs. She only had a daughter, or she didn't have a daughter, her sister would inherit her. So therefore, those women, if they have to go to court, they'll lose grace in the eyes of men by going to court. We'll explain this more in Ben Sion. The Mishnah says, Machra ksuvasa o miksasa, mishkana ksuvasa o miksasa, nasna ksuvasa la'acher o miksasa. She sold her ksuva, the entire ksuva, or part of it. Or she made her ksuva as a mashkon. She wanted to borrow money. She made her ksuva as a collateral. Or she gave a present to her full ksuva, or part of a ksuva. Lo timkor es ashar. So if she gave away or made a mashkon or sold part of it, the rest she has to sell in Beis Din to collect the rest of the ksuva. Even she can sell even 4 or 5 times, like they said in the previous Mishnah, even shelo b'fnei Beis Din. She can sell. Everyone agrees from mazonos she can sell out of Beis Din because she needs it immediately. Because seves lemazonos macharti, when she sells a property from mazonos, she writes, I sold it from mazonos. We discussed in the previous daf why you write that. The gerusha lo timkar the Beis Din. And then the Mishnah says that if she's divorced, right, and then the husband dies, so then she wants to sell property, that has to be done in Beis Din. So the Gemara says, who's our Mishnah follow? Reb Shimon, especially Reb Shimon, Desanya, Machra ksuvasa, Mishkana ksuvasa, Asta ksuvasa putiki la'acher. A Brisa says, right, she sold her ksuva. She made her ksuva collateral, or she made her ksuva the explicit means to collect the debt, right? She borrowed money and made her ksuva the way of collecting the debt, right? La'acher ein la mazonos. She doesn't have any mazonos. She lost her mazonos, like we learned, right, earlier in the Masech, that once a woman, an almana or a gerusha, they sell their ksuva, an almana, when they collect their ksuva, so they lose their mazonos. Shimon, so according to Danakam, they have to sell their entire ksuva or get rid of the entire ksuva. Even if she only sold part of her ksuva, avda mazonoseh, she lost her mazonos. So that's why our Mishnah says whether full or half, she already lost her mazonos. Therefore, it has to be in front of Beis Din according to Rabbi Shimon, because all she's collecting are the ksuva. According to Rabbi Shimon, the ksuva you have to consult Beis Din before you sell. So we're going to say our Mishnah follows Reb Shimon. So Reb Shimon would subscribe to the view that partial money is not considered like full money, meaning having half of a ksuva that's not collected yet is not considered having a whole ksuva. But Rabbanan say Amrina mixes kesef with kol kesef. Rabbanan say no, that even if she sold part of her ksuva, she sells part to collect. So therefore, it's like she has the full ksuva, and therefore she has mazonos. She's still entitled to mazonos. We learn the opposite elsewhere. The Sanya, we learned in Mesachas Yevamos. V'hu isha b'suleha. A Kohen Gadol has to marry a b'sula. Pra lebogeres shakal b'suleha. Divrei Rameir. Rameir says he can't marry not only a woman who's had sex with another man, also a woman who's a bogeres. She turned 12 years old in 6 months. At which point a woman's psulim, her hymen, is not completely gone, but it becomes mitigated, it becomes a little lessened, right, in thickness, or I don't know exactly, but according to the Gemara, it becomes a little less. So, also that a Kohen Gadol can't marry, according to Meir. Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, Machshir, and they say that type of bogeres, a Kohen Gadol could marry. Machshir and bogeres. So you see, Rabbi Shimon is the second opinion. He says a bogeres, where she has a partial hymen, right, is okay. So why doesn't he say A partial ksuba is like a full ksuba, and she has entitled to mazonas. Why didn't it say that? The Gemara says, "Hasam b'krai pli." There when it comes to a kohen gadol marrying a psula, they're arguing about how you darshan a pasuk, not a svara. Rabbi Meir said psula, I feel mixes psulim. The word basula, if it didn't just said the word basula in the Torah, I would have said any type of basulim, any type of hymen. Basula, why add a yud hey? Adi kula basulim. So there, that it has to be an entire basulim. Bagir is not good. Bibsula, the extra base, this is not relevant to our Gemara. The Gemara is just quoting an explanation of the pasuk. Bibsula b'kedark inch lo kedark alo. Right, only if she has sex with a man from the front, then she loses her virginity and she can't be married to a kohen gadol. If he's bore her from anus in the back, so then she's still considered a psula. Those are Shimon Savri. They learn the pasuk basula shlema mashma. The word basula means that she has complete hymen. A barrier would not be good. Basula, the yud hey, I feel a mix of basula. That comes to add even mixas basulim. Even if she's a Bulgarian, she's okay to marry a kohen gadol. Top of Sadi Chenem and Aleph. Bibsula, the extra base, you call basula kayamin beim kedarka beim shelo kedarka. That comes to tell you that even if she had sex anally, she would be puzzled to the Kohen Gadol. That will conclude today's shir. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion. We talk more about this idea of chena and really footnote number 2 on 97b, resolving the question of Art Scroll and really Tosafos' question. Our school offered 2 different possibilities. I'm going to offer a third, which makes more sense. The word china, chen, which makes more sense based on human psychology. Stay tuned for Ian Ben Sion coming up next.